Okay, Year 9, second video of the evening, moving from the First World War to the Second World War. I'm going to talk about something that we've looked at in quite a lot of detail this year. You've even done an assessment on it, and that is the turning points of World War II, the turning points of the Second World War. This video should not have anything in it that you don't know already. This video should just be for revision purposes. There should not be, as I say, anything in this video that you don't know already, but we'll see. I'm going to talk about the three turning points that we've looked at this year. First of all, the Eastern Front, Pearl Harbor, and D-Day. Those three turning points in the Second World War. Okay, we'll talk about those three things, and as I say, this should just be for revision. Shouldn't be anything new here, but if there is, make sure you write it down and you revise properly for your end of year exam this week. So, I'll start with the Eastern Front, chronological order. The Eastern Front. Now, to help me, I have here a map. Okay, hopefully that map is relatively clear. I'm going to talk you through it. So here in the blue is Germany. This is Europe in August 1939, by the way. August 1939, a month before the war starts. There's Germany in the blue. Okay, so just like in World War I, Hitler and Germany did not want a war where they were fighting on two fronts. Okay, France and Britain are over here. Russia is over here. Germany don't want to be fighting them and them at the same time. You have to split your army in half. It's a bit of a strategic nightmare. You want to be fighting, ideally, one at a time. So either Russia or France and Britain, not both at the same time. Okay, so Germany and Hitler did not want to fight a war on two fronts. So, in August 1939, Germany and the Soviet Union, or Russia, Soviet Union, signed, wrong bit of paper, signed the Nazi-Soviet Pact. They signed that in August 1939. Now this was a pact, or an agreement, I should say, a pact or an agreement, to say that, number one, neither side would attack each other. Okay? So Germany say, we're not going to attack you, Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union say, good, because we're not going to attack you either, Germany. It's an agreement that you're not going to attack each other. Okay? And two, they would split the country of Poland, here, in two. So Germany would invade it from this end, and have this half, and the Soviet Union would invade from this end and have this half. Okay, so not only are we not going to attack each other, we're also going to split Poland in half. Okay, that was the agreement. Now, when the Nazi-Soviet Pact was signed in August 1939, it was, I can't exaggerate this enough, it was a huge shock to the world, a massive shock. No one could have predicted this happening. No one. Okay. It was a massive shock to the world because Hitler hated the Soviet Union. He hated Russia. And he hated Stalin in particular. He hated the Soviet Union and their idea of communism. Communism is an idea that everybody should be equal, everybody should have the same things. There shouldn't really be any private companies. So you wouldn't have a McDonald's and a Burger King and things like that. You'd have one fast food restaurant. You wouldn't have Nike and Adidas, just have one company that made trainers. Everyone would have the same things. You wouldn't have private business, and people would earn the same amount of money and live in the same kinds of house regardless of what jobs they did or where they came from and things like that. Hitler didn't like that idea, and he didn't like Stalin, and vice versa. Stalin hated Hitler in equal measure. These two countries, very simply, hate each other. Germany and Russia, or Germany and the Soviet Union to give it its proper name at this time, Germany and the Soviet Union hate each other. Okay, so when they signed this pact, this agreement that one, they're not going to attack each other, and two, they're going to split Poland in half, which was kept secret, by the way, that second part, otherwise Poland would have been prepared for the invasion. When they signed this agreement, it's a massive shock to the world that they've kind of made friends. Okay, huge shock. Two massive enemies, two people who clearly hate each other, agreeing to be friends. Okay, quite a big shock. So, War, World War II, Second World War, was declared on the 3rd of September 1939, 2 days after Germany had invaded Poland. So after Germany had signed this agreement with the Soviet Union, that they'd split Poland in half, Germany invaded Poland on the 1st of September 1939. Okay, Germany invaded Poland on the 1st of September 1939. Britain and France said, please can you get out of Poland, or it's going to be war between us. And by the 3rd of September, Hitler had not removed his army from Poland, so the Second World War began. Okay? So, as I say, war began in September 1939, and at this point, Hitler only had to worry about Britain and France, okay? Because he signed an agreement with Russia that he's not going to fight them. So he only has to worry about that country and that country. He doesn't have to worry about this lot. He's friends with them for now. He only has to fight Britain and France. Now, by 1940, or the middle of 1940, France had been defeated, and Britain was certainly not in a strong position, and this kind of carried on until 1941. Okay, so France is defeated and out of the war. Britain is not in a particularly strong position. America aren't in the war yet either. And at this point, in the middle of 1941, the summer of 1941, Hitler felt powerful enough and strong enough to go, well, you know that country that I hate so much, the Soviet Union, given that I've now defeated France, Britain are almost on the verge of defeat, maybe I can turn around now and attack the Soviet Union, that country that I hate so much, that I've almost pretended to be friends with. I now feel strong enough in June 1941 to turn around and invade them and attack them. So, in June 1941, a German force of 3 million men invaded Russia, invaded the Soviet Union. It was a very swift invasion, and by the winter of 1941, the Germans had taken a million Soviet prisoners who, as I talked about in a previous video, in the Holocaust video, actually end up suffering a great deal from the Germans. Many of them are actually executed as part of the Holocaust. The Germans also, by the winter of 1941, had got very close to the capital city of the Soviet Union, Moscow. So this very swift invasion from the Germans was, was quite worrying for the Soviet Union. They were thinking, oh, wow, that's caught us by surprise. And Hitler very nearly defeated them. Once you invade the capital city of a country, generally that means that you've won, because that's where the government is, that's where most of the key industry is. So once you take out the capital city of a country, generally it means you've won, you've beaten that country. So luckily for the Soviet Union, the winter set in. So by the time that the Germans got very close to Moscow, the winter set in, and as we know in Russia they have very strong, or very cold winters I should say, lots and lots of snow, really kind of tough conditions which set in. And the German army had not properly prepared for this. Obviously they'd invaded in the summer, and they'd gone in thinking, we're going to invade the Soviet Union like that, we're not going to be there in the winter, or we'll have beaten them by the winter, so we don't need to worry about fighting in the snow or the winter anymore. Well, that's what Hitler had told them anyway. So by the time the winter did set in, they weren't equipped with the proper equipment that they needed to fight in the winter, in the Russian winter. Now, as we know, it was from this point, pretty much, that the war began to turn on its head, as the Germans would stay in Russia to battle the Russian forces, the Soviet forces. But after the German 6th Army had been defeated at Stalingrad in February 1943, the German forces were gradually pushed back into Germany from the east. So gradually the Germans being pushed back this way, back into Germany by the Soviet Union. And obviously in the west, they're being pushed back by the British, and again after December 1941 they're also being pushed back by the Americans, or more like after D-Day they're being pushed back by the Americans and the British. But again, there's a push from this end and a push from this end, and also from the south through Italy as well. So eventually Germany by 1944 find that they're being pushed from all different angles, and that ultimately leads to their defeat in the Second World War. So the Eastern Front is clearly a turning point in the war, because if Hitler had not invaded the Soviet Union, He would have only ever had to worry about France and Britain and maybe America, all coming at him from this end. So he can focus all his attack on one area, whereas he has to split it by fighting an enemy on that side and enemies on this side as well. Okay, which really backfires on him. Now, I just said that Germany were fighting America in the West. Well, why were Germany fighting America in the West? Well, that's because of our second turning point, Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, or the attack on Pearl Harbor, I should say, which took place on the 7th of December, 1941. Okay? Now, this was a Japanese attack on the American naval base, Pearl Harbor, in Hawaii. So the American Navy was kept at Pearl Harbor, which is in Hawaii, so in the Pacific Ocean, quite a long distance away from the mainland of America. So the American Pacific Fleet was kept anyway in the harbour, Pearl Harbor, in Hawaii. And it was attacked by the Japanese, as I say, on the 7th of December 1941. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor with their planes and took out many of the American ships. But why did the Japanese attack the USA? Okay, why did the Japanese attack the USA? What had America done to Japan to make them so angry that Japan responded with an attack? Well, since 1931, Japan had been conquering large parts of East Asia and expanding its empire. They'd captured large parts of China and other areas of East Asia. And they were spreading and really kind of flexing their muscles, okay, as a country. Now, the USA didn't agree with Japan expanding so aggressively, particularly when Japan invaded a country or a place known as French Indochina. It's now the country of Vietnam, but it was invaded by the Japanese. So the USA, at this point, in 1941, refused to supply the Japanese with oil. They said, "Oi, we don't agree with that. We don't agree with you invading countries, particularly French Indochina. Don't agree with that, so we're not giving you, Japan, any more oil." Okay? Now in September 1941, sorry, I got a bit of paper for this. In September 1941, Japan became allies with Germany. Okay? So in September 1941, Japan and Germany became allies, along with Italy, but you don't really need to worry about Italy. So Japan and Germany are allied. And then, as I say, on the 7th of December 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, okay, almost as a response to the Americans cutting off their oil. Now, the USA were not expecting this. It came as a complete bolt out of the blue, a complete shock to them. And it was a huge, huge disaster for the Americans. Thousands of people died. In fact, I've got some statistics written down here. 4 American battleships were sunk. 4 big American battleships that they could use in the war were sunk, destroyed completely. Another 28 ships were damaged. 2,350 American soldiers and naval officers died. 2,350 in one attack. In one day, all those people died. Okay. Now, immediately after Pearl Harbor, the USA declared war on Japan as a response. Okay, so for attacking us at Pearl Harbor unprovoked, we declare war on you. Now, America were actually quite reluctant to declare war on Germany. So they thought, actually, if we just declare war on Japan, we don't have to worry about fighting Germany in Europe. We only have to worry about Japan. So at first it looked like America weren't going to get involved in fighting Germany alongside Britain, until Hitler, as an ally of Japan, declared war on America. So it was Hitler who declared war on America, not the other way around. Hitler declares war on America, despite the fact he's just invaded the Soviet Union just a few months before, declared war on America. So now America said, okay, we're at war with you too, Germany. And as we know, this plays a crucial importance in helping Britain, who was still in the war, kind of hanging on at this point. It plays a crucial part in keeping us, Britain, in the war and holding our own. Now America are there to back us up. So this meant now, after December 1941, that Germany were fighting Britain, as I say, the Soviet Union, who they'd invaded about 6 months earlier, and now America. Okay. Now, at first, I must say the war didn't go too well for America. Japan actually took over loads more land in the Pacific. They actually got very close to Australia. They really did spread through the Pacific quite aggressively. And many of the early battles between Japan and America were won by the Japanese. So at first, the war in the Pacific, anyway, really didn't go that well for America. But as we know, the US would play a really important role. I've just said it. They play a really important role in the war, particularly for us, for Britain, for keeping us in the war and eventually helping us in the next turning point that I'll talk about in a minute. America played a really key role in the war and clearly had some importance. And American importance can be highlighted by one particular event, the third turning point, D-Day. D-Day, which took place on the 6th of June 1944. It was the invasion of France. France had been defeated very quickly by the Germans at the start of the war. Okay, by the middle of 1940, Britain and France, well, France had been defeated, and the British had to escape from France at Dunkirk. Okay, obviously the film came out last year, Dunkirk. I know quite a few of you in Year 9 have seen it. A very momentous moment in British history and in the war. So June 1940, that takes place. We'd had to, or the British and many of the French as well, had had to flee from France back to Britain, across the English Channel, away from the Germans. France had surrendered to the Germans in 1940, and it wasn't until the 6th of June 1944 that Britain and America and many other Allied soldiers were able to get back to France and retake it. Okay, so D-Day is the start of the retaking of France. Okay, it's the Allied invasion, our invasion of France, trying to take it back off the Germans, from the Germans. Now, it was a very carefully planned attack. It was the landings at 5 beaches planned by the Allies. The beaches, if you want any extra information, if you're watching this and you think I'm going to outdo the rest of Year 9 by putting some more info in, if you get a question on D-Day and you want to know the name of the beaches were called Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau and Sword. 5 Allied beaches or beachheads on the Normandy coast that the D-Day landings took place at. 156,000 troops were used on D-Day. 156,000 troops from Britain, America, Canada and France were all used on D-Day. 156,000 from those countries. They were used in the D-Day landings, and they were faced with very strong German resistance. Think back to when we watched the beginning of Saving Private Ryan. Remember what the resistance looked like from the Germans in those scenes on those beaches. They faced real fierce resistance. The Germans had obviously put up great defences of the French coast because they were expecting an invasion at some point by the Allies, particularly once America had joined the war. So they strengthened the defences, and as I say, the Allies, the 156,000 troops of the Allies, really had to battle through to get through those defences. But D-Day was a victory. We did manage to get through those strong German defences and take the French coast, or the Normandy coast at that point, and then gradually push through France over the next year, or just less than a year, before Germany were eventually defeated. Okay, so again, you can see the importance of D-Day there. Okay, talked about before how the Soviet Union were coming from this end, pushing Germany from the east from about 1943 onwards. Well, here we've got the D-Day landings. There's Normandy, and America and Britain and the Allies start pushing Germany back this way. So you've got Germany literally being squeezed, almost literally being squeezed from both ends. So again, America played a huge role in World War II, or D-Day, I should say, was a crucial turning point in the war. Again, led by the Americans and the British and the Canadians and some French as well. So they're the 3 turning points that we've looked at this year: the Eastern Front, Pearl Harbor, and D-Day. It's up to you to understand decide which one is the most significant or the most important. You'll all have your own different ideas, but hopefully this video has helped you understand some of them a little bit better. Make sure you are revising, keep using your exercise books and your textbooks, and use all the revision materials that you need. You can come and see me if you're struggling with any part of the course that we've looked at this year. And finally, like the video, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Revise, that's the most important thing. If you only do one of these things here, revise. And if you do have any requests for any future videos, then just drop them down below in the comment section. Okay, so thank you Year 9, and I'll see you very soon.